Yes. So, Ibtihaj Muhammad is a renowned saber fencer with the United States fencing team, and she's visiting Qatar as a guest from the Government Communications Office. And we are very excited to have her with us this afternoon in Qatar Foundation. Ibtihaj Muhammad is an entrepreneur, an author, an activist, a speaker, an Olympic medalist, a 2016 Olympic bronze medalist, a 5-time senior world medalist and world champion, and in 2016, Ibtihaj became the very first American woman to compete in the Olympics while wearing hijab. I know I want to clap after every sentence of her bio, so. Ibtihaj is a sports ambassador with the US Department of State's Empowering Women and Girls Through Sport initiatives. And she works very closely with organizations like Athletes for Impact and the Special Olympics. Ibtihaj is also the face of Nike's Pro Hijab campaign, which was launched in January 2018. She was named to Time Magazine's 100 Most Influential list. She's also a very important figure in a larger global discussion on equality and the importance of sport. Her voice continues to unite both the sports and non-sports worlds. And for all these achievements and many more, we are immensely honored to have Ibtihaj with us, join during the Qatar National Sport Day celebrations, and be with us this afternoon. Thank you, Ibtihaj. To begin with, Ibtihaj, if we go to the very early beginnings, your mother introduced you to fencing. Prior to your first trial, what were your thoughts on this sport, and how did your first attempt go?
Well, first of all, I want to say hello, assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much to everyone for coming. I thought it would just be me and Amina, so I'm really pleased to see you all here. I started fencing at a relatively young age. I was 12 years old. Prior to that, I was playing a lot of different sports, like tennis, track and field. But for me, in each of these different sports, as a young hijabi, my parents would always have to alter the uniform by adding, an article of clothing to make it hijabi friendly. And at 12, my mom and I happened to be driving past the local high school in the town where I live, or where I grew up, Maplewood, New Jersey, about 30 minutes outside of New York City. And we had no idea what the sport was. We knew that they had swords in their hands, but more importantly, we knew that they were covered athletes. And my mom said, "I don't know what that is, but I want you to try it out." And that was that, yeah.
That's great. Well, you've tried tennis before fencing, and you also mentioned the Williams sisters as sporting icons of yours. And they, like you, found success in a sport that's not necessarily known for its diversity. Was it tough for you to begin competing at a sport that lacked a role model who looked like you?
Well, I think that what I loved most about fencing initially was that the uniform kind of operated for me like, I don't know, a way that I could conceal my identity, and not even intentionally, just the idea that people wouldn't stare at me, right? I've always been comfortable in my own skin, but I always thought it was a little bizarre that other people would make others feel uncomfortable, whether it be for their gender or their ethnicity or their religious beliefs. And with fencing, I thought it was so cool that it was all about how good you could be, right? I could be fencing a girl, I could be fencing a boy. It didn't really matter. It was just about whether or not you could win. And that, I think, lended itself to my very, very, very competitive nature. And I loved working hard and seeing the very real results of the hard work.
Excellent. Well, yours is definitely a story of firsts, among them being the first American Muslim woman to wear hijab while competing for the US at the Olympics. How did you feel standing on the medals podium, knowing that young girls around the world had watched you compete?
Well, I remember when I qualified in February of 2016 in the United States. We were at the height of a very contentious presidential election, and the rhetoric surrounding the Muslim community, not just in the United States, but I would say on a global scale, if you turn on any international news station, certainly in Europe and the United States, the conversations around the Muslim community are not very savory. And to me, they weren't reflective of the community I grew up in, of my family, of the people that I knew, of my friends and family. So I thought that my qualification was very timely in a sense that it immediately flipped this age-old narrative of the Muslim woman, who she is, how she speaks, what she does, on its head. I am African American, so I'm Black. I'm not Arab. I'm American by birth, and I choose to wear hijab. And I'm showing Americans at the time a different lens into the Muslim community and challenging those misconceptions and stereotypes that they have been force-fed for, in my opinion, far too long. So I've always felt like my journey in sport as a sportswoman has been one for all of us, in a sense that I want little girls who look like me to see themselves in my shoes one day and see themselves in non-traditional spaces and know that you don't need to be invited to the table to have a seat. You just kind of pull up the chair and you make room for yourself. And I feel like that's always been my own mantra, in that from the time I was really young, I was bullied and made to feel as if I don't belong, but that's never deterred me from setting my own goals and chasing down my own dreams.
Amazing. So do you believe that sports can be a unifier at times of nationwide mistrust? You spoke about a time feeling unwelcome amid the rising racial, basically tensions in the U.S. that you've mentioned now. So do you believe that sports is a unifier kind of realm in that sense?
Well, that quote that you're speaking of was taken out of context. I was followed home from practice one day in New York City by a man who was screaming and yelling and accusing me of being a terrorist. This was after I qualified for the Olympics, and this happened to me because I wear hijab. So I choose, and this is a conscious choice, to use my platform as an athlete to speak on issues that have happened to me, like this one instance you speak of where in an interview I was asked about it, and my response was I felt unsafe, as I'm sure anyone here would also feel unsafe. But unfortunately, that quote was taken out of context and made in some way to insinuate that I feel unsafe in America all the time. But I think that it highlights a larger issue around the safety of the Muslim community, and not just us as Muslims, but anyone who wears religious head coverings, also like the Sikh community, who have been targeted since this bigoted rhetoric around the Muslim community has been unearthed since this last presidential election. So I feel really strongly about using my platform in meaningful ways, and I'm very conscious in that I always want to be an agent of change. I know how much privilege I have as an American. I know how much privilege I have as an athlete in the different spaces that I exist in and operate in, and I want to give back and always be aware that not everyone has that same privilege that I have.
Well, thank you for the clarification. Going back to the Olympics, reaching the Olympics for sure did not come without much sacrifice. in your hardest and most desperate moments, what helped you lift your chin up? How did you maintain your persistence, Ibtihaj?
Well, in my book, Proud, I talk about these really tough moments that you speak of when you're not where maybe you don't want to get out of the bed, right? Where maybe, you know, the practice or competition or whatever looming, glaring thing you have in front of you seems really difficult. And for me, I truly believe that two things help me in these moments. I talk a lot about depression and sadness in my memoir, and my own battle with that. But I think that one, like hanging on to the rope of faith, and me really connecting to my Islam helped me, and also making a conscious choice to choose happiness. And I'm sure we've all heard that at some point, and it does sound a bit simplistic in a way, and may even sound silly to some, but for me, I truly believe that choosing happiness saved my career as an athlete. I had really tough moments where I was made to feel like an outlier as a member of Team USA and not to feel included by my teammates. And the pressure of, you know, being world champion, winning these medals, I think that pressure accumulated, and for me, the anxiety that I felt manifested itself physically, in a sense that when it was time for me to compete at World Cups, at Grand Prix, my feet felt like lead, my arms felt like I had lost the sensation in them, and I couldn't even hold my saber. So when the referee would say fence, I was ready to take a nap. And if you're sleepy, it's not really, I don't know, it's counterintuitive. It doesn't really help you on the fencing strip. So that competitive nature that I have is, I think, what really kind of ignited this desire to tackle the anxiety and depression head on, to ask for help from a sports psychologist, and really understand why I was feeling the way that I felt, and how I could use faith, how I could utilize putting my faith over my fears in every aspect of my life, how I could utilize that to my benefit and find myself back, you know, top 5 in the world.
I think this is amazing. Definitely not silly and not simplistic. Having read your book and basically sharing through your memoir those moments that you've mentioned, and I find it amazing how what you've just described now helped you in a way as well to maintain your focus and basically push away all the negativity that came your way and stay focused to the goals that you've set for yourself. You've also told your story, I mean, basically in your book, Proud, My Fight for an Unlikely American Dream, and its young readers edition subtitled Living My American Dream. How important was it for you to have a version of your story that's readily accessible to a younger generation?
Well, I know that it's not, a lot of authors choose to release the young readers edition a bit later. And I thought it was great that my publisher wanted to release them at the same time, because I know how important it is for our children to see themselves represented in literature. Some of the earliest forms of diversity and inclusion our children have the opportunity to see is through reading. So having a chance to read my story, the Young Readers Edition is for 8 to 12 years old, like middle school. It tackles these different subjects that a lot of children face in that age range, like bullying or depression, obstacles that we all face. And I think that more importantly, it's a story of resilience, and it shows that anybody can have this dream. I know that it's very rare, and it may sound crazy to say out loud, but I tell people all the time that I'm just a girl from New Jersey who chose to work hard. I don't believe that I'm any different from anyone else. I just try to outwork everyone in the room. Yeah.
You did amazing, basically. That. In 2014, you launched your own modest clothing line, Luella. What gap did you notice in the market for such an initiative, Ibtihaj?
Well, there was no one in the United States who was making modest clothing in a fashionable way, in my opinion. I mean, there are other companies that existed, but there were things that, my mom's not here, so I can say this, but there were things that, like, my mom would wear. Or, like, I don't know, like your grandma. Like, they were dowdy, they were maybe dark, and not that there's anything wrong with that. I think that fashion is what you make it, and but for myself, for my sisters, for my friends, we like to express ourselves through what we wear, and at the same time, we don't want to compromise our connection to our faith. So my sisters, my brother and I created Luella, my clothing company, based around the foundation of three things. We want our clothes to be modest, we want them to be fashionable, but we also want them to be affordable. So all of the pieces on my website are under $200 US, and we manufacture everything in Los Angeles. We use female manufacturers who employ women, and I think it's important that we as a global community start to think about where our clothes come from, the impact and footprint that we leave from an environmental standpoint. I know that that's something that we don't all think about, but I think that we should. And for me, I was able to do that by starting my own clothing company.
It's amazing. Your story is emblematic of the power of representation. Most recently, with collaborations with Nike and Mattel, launching the Nike Pro Hijab, the Shiru Barbie doll of yourself. How much importance do you place on breaking boundaries through such collaborations? How do you view such collaborations, basically?
I mean, I feel like this has all been a gift, you know, to have the opportunity to work with these major brands and Nike developing a pro hijab. I'm sure all the muhajaba in the audience are just as excited as I am. And anyone who's not excited by Nike Pro Hijab or a sports hijab in general does not work out a lot, because to have the opportunity to wear a hijab that is not like super thick and awkward when it gets wet from sweat, this is, I mean, literally a gift from Allah, in my opinion, because when I was competing in a material that is made of georgette, and when it gets wet, it's super stiff, but also you can't hear through it. So my entire career, I was getting yellow card, which, like most sports, it's like a warning. A red card in fencing, you get a point scored against you, and those start to add up. And for me, because I couldn't hear in my regular hijab, I was false starting, or I wasn't ready when the referee said, you know, fence. And with this sports hijab, it's really changed the way that I'm able to practice and I'm able to compete, and it's made my life a lot easier. And I also I talk to the Nike execs about this all the time, the impact that this sports hijab has, particularly on our young girls, and the way that they think about health and nutrition and being active. We no longer have the excuse of, oh, I don't know what to wear, right? Things are so much easier now in terms of finding modest activewear than they were 5 years ago, than they were 10 years ago. And inshallah, I hope that it continues to become more of a norm, not just here in, you know, Qatar, in a Muslim country, but also for those of us who live, you know, overseas. There's so much ease, I think, now to finding modest fashion, even in the sports world. And there's something to be said to have large companies like Nike, like Mattel, to choose inclusiveness and diversity in moments where it's far easier for people to stay silent. And in my opinion, when you choose silence in moments of in moments like this where it has become such a norm in the United States for people to be bigoted and to be racist and xenophobic. And it's far easier for these larger companies to stay out of it and not say anything, and to sell more clothes and product, to be honest. But I think it's revolutionary for them to make a hijabi Barbie doll and have it be their top selling doll. I'm really appreciative, and I hope that for our young kids, it changes the way they look at the world.
Absolutely. Well, you're a very hardworking person, and throughout your life journey, you've come to the realization that work never stops. So what is next for Ibtihaj Muhammad?
Well, I have my third book that'll come out in October, inshallah. It's called The Proudest Blue. It's a children's book. It's a story about hijab and about family, and it follows my two younger sisters, Asiya and Faiza, and how Faiza and Asiya's bond helps Asiya wear her hijab to school for the first time. It's illustrated by an Egyptian Canadian. His name is Hatem Ali, and it's really beautiful. I mean, the artwork is exquisite, and I'm really excited for you guys to see it.
Wonderful. I have a quote from your book, Proud, here, where you say, "The average person doesn't understand that a professional athlete isn't born, she's made." And with this in mind, Ibtihaj, any last words or advice you would have for a young girl, a young boy who wish to follow in your footsteps?
Well, I hope that your dreams are far greater than mine, and I think it's really important, not just for children, but for each of us, no matter what age that we're at, that we always lead our lives with faith, and to always put faith ahead of fear, because faith can paralyze you. And I know that fear can paralyze you. I know that I allowed fear to do that to me at different points in my life, but I've learned to always be faithful and to believe, and I think it's important that we all put faith ahead of fear.
Thank you very much, Ibtihaj. I think we'll open the floor to our audience here today for any questions. So, we have a question here and then one at the back. One in the front, and then the lady with the blue shayla at the back.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Ibtihaj, we are really happy and honored that you are here. It's not only you are Muslim, you are wearing hijab, you're proud of it, you have won Olympic medal, and you are working all the time. We are really happy and honored and proud that you are here. We really love you. My question is, when you win the medal in 2016, I think it was like months before Trump got elected, a lot of articles comparing you to him, and people saying that they are more proud of you than Trump. You know, the States is a place we love. The most friendly people are there. But after what happened and he's being president, what do you think of that?
That's a loaded question. I hope that nobody's comparing me to him. We're leagues apart in intelligence. You know, it's really difficult, not just for us as Americans, but I would say for a lot of us, for any of us that have any amount of decency or moral standard, to exist at during a time where there's someone like that in office in a very powerful country. I think that this is a test, right? And I think that each of us, no matter what country you're from, you owe it to the international community to take a stand. There's a lot of things that are happening in the United States right now that are horrific and ugly, and even children are being affected. So I think of it as hopefully like just a blip in our map, and I hope our next president is able to lead our nation in a way that does not, tear us apart and, pit us against each other. Because it's hard to see the regression in our country right now.
So the question, yeah.
So, first of all, I want to say thank you because 1, you're a woman, 2, you're a woman of color, 3, you're a woman in sports, and 4, you wear hijab, and 5, you're a Muslim. And if any one person in this room has one of those that they live with, it's a struggle, and they're discriminated against that like every day. And you have those 5 things combined, and you're still badass, and you're a role model. So it's not really a question. I just want to say thank you, because if someone else in the world, when I walk out of this room, says, you know what, you can't do it, I'm just going to say, she did it, so I can. And I just want to say thank you for honestly breaking the stigma and being open and nice. So,
thank you. So very kind. MashaAllah, I appreciate that.
We have 2 questions here, one in the second row and then the third.
Hi, I wanted to ask, how did you power through backlash when your career started to build?
Can you repeat the second part?
I wanted to ask, how did you power through backlash when your career started to build?
It's really important to be myopic in your focus. I faced a lot of backlash, not just within the fencing community, but even like in my own household. My parents wanted me to utilize this very expensive degree that I received from Duke, and they didn't understand why I wasn't going to graduate school. Before I qualified for my first national team, everyone thought that I was crazy, everyone. Because people aren't on board all the time with your dreams and the goals and the way that you see them. But what I think is really interesting about your journey is that it's your own and it's not meant for other people to understand. So had I, seceded to the idea of society's expectations of where I should be and what I should be doing, I wouldn't be sitting here talking, with you guys today. And for me, when I looked at Team USA and saw that there had never been a woman of color on the women's saber team, that there had never been a hijabi on the United States Olympic team, as a problem solver, I felt like I had to do it, right? It wasn't because I, had the track record and it was going to be easy. I'd never been to an international competition. I had no world ranking. I had no domestic ranking. I'd never been to a senior competition, never been to a World Cup. So for me, the odds were definitely stacked against me. But as someone who genuinely believes I can do anything, because I am a very, very hard worker, but also I'm just very competitive, and I feel like fueled and energized when people don't think that I'm capable of something, because for me it's like, well, I'm going to show you that not only can I do it, but I can do it better than you. And that's just my mindset. And I think that, I don't know if that competitiveness comes from growing up in a large family, like fighting for the last slice of pizza. I don't know. But yeah. We need it, right?
And the little girl here, yes.
When did you start wearing hijab?
I started wearing hijab all the time at 12 years old.
And do you have any advice for little girls wearing hijab?
Advice. When I was young, my mom used to put me in the same color from head to toe. I'm not sure if that's because she wanted to find me in crowds, or if I could get myself dressed in the morning. I don't really know, but advice, I don't know. I mean, I think hijab is really beautiful. I love the idea that for me, even as a young kid, it reminded me of Islam all the time. And I think that the struggle or the journey of hijab is so different for everyone. And everyone here could give you advice, but I think it's going to be, your story is going to be unique to you, and it'll happen when it's meant to happen. Yeah.
Excuse me? Here. Here. In the right hand. No, on the left, yeah.
Okay, so here, please. Oh.
And I'm Ibtihaj Muhammad from basketball national team. Welcome to Qatar, Ibtihaj. And thank you to be a part of our sport day. My question to you, you know about the Qatar team was in Ancient 2014, and you heard about the hijab. And we feel the same struggle and the pain and anxiety what happened for us to leave the area or to play without the hijab or leave the area. So we leave, and I tell him, I don't know how many years we will get back, but we will gonna to play with the hijab. So we start the campaign in all around the world, and you are the one of the supporting. I heard from Twitter and everywhere. So was my dreaming to see some people was supporting Qatar team to play with hijab. So my question, how you feel after you hear that they agree to play with hijab for all women in all around the world to play with hijab in the national team for the basketball?
Yeah, I mean, I know that FIFA lifted their ban first, right? And then I think FIBA followed. So for those of you who may not have, I guess, understood what the sister was saying, her team wasn't allowed to participate on the international stage because they wear hijab. And FIBA, the International Basketball Association, at the time did not permit the wearing of any headwear, whether it was for religious reasons or not. And that ban was since lifted, but I think that it opens, I guess, the door for more important conversations around the idea of patriarchy and men constantly telling women what they should wear, right? I'm not sure why in 2019 we still have to have this conversation around women's bodies and dictating what we should and shouldn't wear. I think that it should always be our choice. And when it comes to sport, like having to Amina's point, having a company like Nike release the sports hijab, I think has been really helpful in that there's no safety issue, which was always FIBA and FIFA's reasoning behind not allowing the wearing of hijab in professional sport. It's helped, I'm sure, you guys in your case, and I'm really happy that you guys get to play. I don't know what I would do if I was told that I couldn't play because I wore hijab. I know it took a lot of guts to choose your faith in that moment, because unfortunately there are people out there who feel bullied and pressured into choosing sport over their faith.
A couple more questions. Okay, maybe we have one here. So one here and then on the side.
Hello, my name is El Anud. I'm a CMU student. So I have two questions. The first would be, you mentioned you studied at Duke. So how did you manage to balance your education while still going to practice? And because you competed at such a elite level.
I don't know. It's hard, right? I think that as college students, there's your social life, your academic life, and your sport life, or athletic, I guess, life. And you have those three things, but to be honest, I've always felt like you can only do two effectively. So I didn't really have friends. I, went to practice and I studied and I studied and I went to practice. And then my senior year, I decided not to fence anymore because I actually wanted friends. I wanted a social life. And I had the opportunity to study abroad. But I think that sport teaches you balance, and more importantly, it teaches you time management. So through through athletics, I've been able to learn how to, I guess, juggle everything.
Thank you. And my second question is, you mentioned that fencing helps you conceal your identity in a way, but do you ever feel that people are looking at you because you're wearing the hijab while fencing? And if you do feel the nerves, like how do you calm yourself before competing?
Yes, I have to say something. Anud is a second black belt in Taekwondo.
Yeah, so I kind of had that. I felt like nervous when I competed because I felt like people were staring at me, or I don't know, like I got into my head, so I want to detach myself sometimes.
Well, I think that, I don't know, that nerves almost get a bad rap, and people think that athletes like LeBron James or Serena Williams don't have nerves. Nerves are natural, so we all have nerves. It's, I think what separates the top athletes outside of their athletic ability, what separates, you know, those on top from one another is how you manage your nerves. And for me, I've learned to use breathing exercises, and I recite like my favorite surahs from the Quran like right before I start fencing, because to me that like slows my heartbeat, I guess, and helps me focus. But the idea that you know, thinking that people are staring at me because I wear hijab, or because, I mean, Muhammad's on my lamé or on my jacket when I compete. I never think of those things because, again, in sport, you have to learn how to be hyper-focused on your goal, and your goal is to win, right? So you can't think of things you can't control. You can't control that somebody's staring at you because you have on a hijab. Like, who cares? Yeah.
Thank you.
So, last question. One last question. Here.
Never mind. Hi.
Okay, there.
When,
Good.
like, who do you admire the most? Like, when you were younger, who did you admire the most, and who gave you, like, the best advice that you have ever heard? Because, like, when people, like, bullied you, like you said in Proud, because when people bullied you, who did you, like, come for, like, when you felt, like, really, really down?
I feel like I've gotten really good advice and I guess encouragement from my family, like my mom and my sisters. I have tough moments where I may feel sad, and I rely really heavily on my sisters. A lot of tears, a lot of stories, but I find inspiration and motivation in reading stories of like my predecessors or different athletes whose struggles were far greater than mine, who were spit on, who might have been beaten up, who might have, like Muhammad Ali was sent to jail. He's had titles taken from him. And it, to me, puts my life into perspective. You know, things aren't as difficult as you think because there's someone who has had it worse than you, or someone whose experience may be more difficult than yours. So I think that being conscious of that and trying to have that perspective that things could always be worse allows me to see, I guess, the silver lining even in difficult moments.
I think you've also spoken of this balance between the inspirational stories or the advice you get from your close circle, but also be driven by strength that you somehow find within. So I think this was something I found very interesting in your story. Last question, one last question. We had the hand up. Yep, the girl with the maroon. Go ahead.
Hello, Ibtihaj. Everybody in this life face struggles, cool? And I'm one of them. There are times when I feel really bad and I feel really low. As a successful person, alhamdulillah, what did you really do when you felt unmotivated? You had these days and you cried and you were in tears and you were with people you didn't like and you were uncomfortable. Who did you go to actually like have help and feel good again and come back and fight?
I feel like faith has always been really important for me to stay grounded. I think it's kept me grounded in those really difficult moments. I was really fortunate, like you said, those difficult times where maybe I felt bullied, maybe I didn't feel welcome by my teammates or by the coaching staff. What did I do? And I was really fortunate to have my sister, who also traveled with me to these different World Cups and fought for a spot on the Olympic team. It's hard to be alone, right? And even when I was alone, I used prayer, I guess to, I don't know if it's to pacify the situation or what it, I don't know exactly what it did for me, but I know that it brought me solace in those situations. But also I think having my sister there was a reminder that, and also like a comfort, security blanket for me in those moments. So I was lucky to have not just my sister, which I think is such a blessing to be able to travel and compete with her, but I also had my best friend who traveled and competed with me as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Ibtihaj, thank you so much for your time today. It's a great pleasure and honor to have you here with us. And towards the end of our time here, we have the Qatar National Fencing Federation who would like to present Ibtihaj Muhammad with a token of appreciation.
So for those of you who aren't aware what this is, it's a fencing mask. Thank you so much. I heard that you guys won a medal recently. Yeah. Do you want to tell everyone what medal you won?
Arab Championship. We won Arab Championships under 17 teams in Kuwait.
Congratulations. That's very exciting, inshallah. Many medals to come. Yeah, and Olympics for Qatar, inshallah. Yeah.